particularly spent a great deal of time in Japan, and as I've gotten to know Partha over the years, I've been impressed, not only in his expertise, but also his very deep knowledge of Japan and insights that he's gained through his time spent in the country. So I look very much forward to your keynote address.
Thank you very much, Ken. Thanks to all of you here. I think with very deep feelings, we are here because it was 3/11 was tough for many, many people, not only in Japan, but all over the world. So I think in that sense, we take this conference with highest level of reverence to humanity. I'm glad that I'm trying to work on TH. TH, by the way, in chemistry means thermal. And we are talking about energy, so I think it's appropriate that TH dominates. And my friend Hirota Kataguchi will soon show up, so I'm really looking forward to this conference. I think I'd like to first thank the students of Fletcher School, particularly the Japanese contingent, and their friends to be able to organize with the Hitachi Center and the professors here this conference. I think such conferences bring together all kinds of minds with whom we hope we can shape the future. Now, the first roundtable that we had this year in this room was focused on the base of the pyramid, and the discussion was how should Japanese business connect with the base of the pyramid. It was a very, very successful conference, and you'll be glad to know some of the initiatives which came out of that particular conference has been adopted partly at the Fletcher School, partly also an organization which Professor Uma has been helping us, is the Boston Pledge. And in fact, tomorrow in this room, we're going to have the Boston Pledge conference on humanity, equity, technology towards a new human conscience. So as you could see, these little events lead to big events, and I think time has come that we look at the world with a strategic perspective, as TH has very beautifully articulated. And I like to talk about the strategic aspect as your keynote speaker. Now, note means music, so I'll be talking about the symphony of the future and how we could, coming out of the tragedy, could really create a new symphony of human conscience. And one thing I would like to particularly share with you, that this particular year, since the 3/11, has been a very special year. 3/11 was the beginning, and then we know what happened in the Middle East. Three leaders who used to be called leaders are not there anymore. The Middle East is going through a big change. Then you know what is going on in Wall Street right now as we speak. There's a lot of struggle. Indeed, the world is in the middle of a very fundamental question of where we are and where we want to be. So I look at the tragedy that occurred in 3/11 with that perspective, as much as about 15,000 lives were affected, about $350 billion were affected, but at the same time, in honor of those individuals, it's not just a matter of reconstruction, it is a matter of reconfiguring how we as a civilization should proceed, how we should engage with technology, how we should engage with energy. And that is, by the way, Fletcher School is all about. I'm very, very thrilled to be I like to be a permanent member of the Fletcher community, but I am very much permanent, and I think that's what we do as in the Fletcher School. Now, I would like to suggest, in name of the people whom we have lost, about 10 seconds of silence, and so let me have the pleasure of 10 seconds of silence. Thank you very much. Obviously, the people whom we have lost in that tragedy, I was watching in TV, in various media, how people had to struggle. But what touched, I think, all of us around the world is the dignified way the people of Japan dealt with that crisis. I think that's the soft assets that are the professor at Harvard talks about the soft power of the United States, Joseph Nye. I think today I'd like to talk about the soft power of Japan and what can we learn from Japan to build the 21st century. So I'm talking about exploring the new frontiers of human conscience beyond 3/11 and how we could prepare the world, not only Japan, towards a world of heightened uncertainty. And firstly, I'd like to, since I spent some time in Japan, and I think Kim was very kind to recognize that, I have to show off a little bit of my Japanese capability. So in that spirit, let me say Gambare Japan, Nihon, Gambare Tohoku. I think, which means let's go Japan, let's go Tohoku, let's build it up with a positive spirit. I might be able to not be able to respect your 10 minutes, but we'll try. But what is good is that, let's look at things positively. Japan has gone through many crises, but if you look at the 60s, it was a great period. And as both Professor Gallagher as well as Yaraga-san has mentioned, the last 20 years have been a struggle. And it has been a red period, and it is our hope that as the tragedy, if we deal with the tragedy of 3/11, we will be able to come out in an elegant way. And as you know, Japan has dealt with tragedies. This is the famous Great Kanto earthquake. It was as bad, and then, sorry, everything I went back all the way, sorry. So the earthquake in September of 1923, then you know Hiroshima. And every time Japan has come out of this crisis in a very elegant and dignified way, and this is the mark of 2011. So I'm looking at the efforts that we are making out of the disaster, and I call it the triple disaster, the earthquake, the tsunami, as well as the nuclear meltdown, with a positive spirit as to how to create the new Japan, which would be an inspiration for the new globe. And globe is looking for the new inspiration. So in that spirit, I'll just touch on 3 points. The first would be the new environment. I'm looking forward to the speakers that we have talking about it. What are the new requirements of governance? And then, of course, few thoughts on how could Japan activate both its soft assets as well as its hard initiatives. Now, when you look at the uncertainty today, the problems that we have faced, there are 3 kinds of, I would say, problems which really lead to these uncertainties. One is what I would call scientific and technological errors. With the Charbon, we talk about 3 Mile, BP, Fukushima Daiichi. Then we talk about the human, which is also a kind of terrorism, which is the junk bonds, the Enrons, the 9/11, the Credit Suisses, the meltdowns, and computer hacking. This is real, it's happening. And then, of course, the natural disasters, and as all of you know, and it's very favorite of both Professor Gallagher and Professor Momo, the environment is becoming such that we are exposing ourselves to more natural disasters. So, what is the forces behind? If you really look at it very carefully, society today is dealing with 2 fundamental vectors. One I would call the increasing intensity of knowledge in everything that we do. But knowledge, as you know, is volatile. It could be very productive as well, and it could be dangerous, and we have seen that. And on the other side, the complexity of business processes and business models are increasing, particularly as we move into network world. So there is a flood in Thailand, the supply chain of Apple suffers. There is something happening in Japan, supply chain of Ford Motor Company suffers. So these problems are not Japan's problems anymore. It is a problem of the globe. And we have to all come together to find how we can deal with this problem. And indeed, as we start interacting with each other, as the multiple variables come into play, in simple terms, the complexity of the world has increased in a very, very significant way. And the problem that I see, having been a management consultant in boards of many companies, that we are trying to deal with the complexity with the old mindset. We are still talking about the equations that developed in the early part of the 20th century, but the 21st century has become extremely different. And that's where I think we have a tremendous opportunity as we rebuild Japan. If Japan not extend the past thinking into the future, but reconstruct Japan with a more futuristic model. Now what is interesting, this we will admire a lot. I'm talking to you a little